I'm Thad Brown. That's Carl Jones. This is Let's Talk Ball. We're breaking down the X's and O's from the Bills and the Packers this time. And Carl, we'll start on the offensive side of the ball. And the big drama from this game was Stefon Diggs v. Jaire Alexander. Started right off the jump, coming out of the tunnel. The guys were jawing at each other. The game was chippy. It seemed like that kind of set the tone for the game, that these two teams were going to, cross the line a few times, had an ejection in the game. But primarily it was those two guys. And the funny thing was afterwards, Stefon Diggs said, I don't know who started it, but I finished it. Then Jaire said, I finished it. And Diggs had the numbers and he had the win. And Jaire could say he had the numbers because the Bills didn't really throw on him. The funny thing was, they never really went head-to-head because Jaire Alexander stays on one side of the defense the whole night. And the Bills decided, okay, we're just going to take Stefon Diggs and put him on the other side. And there really were very few head-to-head Alexander Diggs reps. Alexander spent the night covering Gabe Davis and Khalil Shakir. So, but this is a point you want to make, though, about how the Bills are using Diggs this year.
Before we get into that, you actually were in the tunnel. So who actually started the fight?
So I wasn't in the tunnel, all right? So I was kind of like next to the tunnel. So I saw it as it spilled out in the field, and I don't know who started it. The one thing I will say is, at that moment, the Packers DBs are running onto the field, whereas the Bills skill guys are gathered for their huddle. So, like, what happens is that the DBs come out first. I don't know if it works for every team, but for the Bills, the DBs come out first. Then right after, it's Josh Allen and the skill guys. But every group has their little huddle, like, let's go, guys, we're going to go get them, blah, blah, blah. So whatever was said in the offensive huddle for this time, Diggs missed it because Diggs was too busy jawing with Alexander. So Alexander's running the field with his teammates. Diggs leaves his huddle, comes onto the field chasing down Alexander to say whatever they said. And then he kind of gets done and turns around, and here comes Josh Allen running the field, and Diggs just kind of like plays it off nicely, actually. He turned around and was like, okay, guys, high five, high five, high five, good job, everybody. So, again, I don't know who started it, but Diggs was the one who went out of his way to continue it.
Gotcha. It was entertaining nonetheless for someone who wasn't there, and I just wanted your point of view on it. Now, to go back to the X's and O's aspect of it, Ken Dorsey does a phenomenal job, especially this year, of moving Stefon Diggs all around. And not going to lie, as someone who loves those one-on-one matchups, good on good, I was looking forward to a Jaire Alexander and Stefon Diggs matchup. But knowing coming in that the Packers play a lot of zone defense and Ken Dorsey is creative in moving Stefon Diggs around, I knew we probably weren't going to get that, and we didn't. And for this reason right here, when you move Stefon Diggs all around the field, especially from his normal outside position to in the slot, it does a variety of things, but I want to hit on 3 points. One, it declares man or zone. So if he's in the slot, if it's man coverage, that outside corner that's usually out there has to come into the slot. So Josh Allen's like, oh, guys, it's man. It makes it easier for me. If he doesn't follow, it's zone, so it declares the coverage. That's first and foremost. Secondly, if it is zone coverage, then it makes a better matchup and an easier route tree for Stefon Diggs down the field. If he's going up against a backer, corners can't cover Stefon Diggs, let alone linebackers, okay? So it makes him easier in that regard. And then lastly, it expands his route tree as well. He has a lot more creativity from that slot receiver spot, and you saw that all night against the Packers, that long little post route that he ran a cover 2 in that 2-minute drill, and then he got his on the outside as well. So just moving him all around was fun to see, and Ken Dorsey had another, I guess, nice game plan to go against the Packers and what they presented.
Yeah, Dorsey's been very good as a rookie play caller. The thing that I want to point out about his game plan is the game, people talk about how boring it kind of felt in the second half. I think some of the reason for that is it really, especially when the Bills had the ball, didn't feel like there was much adventure or anything outside of the box being done. In the Bills' run game, for the most part, they'd see light boxes, double team both tackles, and it's instant space. And look, you're getting 4 to 6 every single time because the linebackers are too far away to really have an impact. The tackles are erased. All you got to do is not have a defensive end crash, and it's instant space. And the Bills were able to, pick up some good chunks. They had better plays beyond that. There wasn't just that. But, we talked a little bit about how Ken Dorsey doesn't go out of his way to try something stupid when the easy stuff works. So he just keeps hitting the easy button, and the Bills keep gaining yards and had a really good first half scoring points. Beyond that offensively, what else kind of stuck out to you in this game?
Not much. I was encouraged to see the run game in the first half, back-to-back weeks when the Bills are going up against run defenses that aren't stout. Just take advantage of it, right? You don't want to have those games where it's like, man, the Packers were low in run defense and we still can run the ball on them. So that was exciting to see. Outside of that, it was a little discouraging to see Josh make some of the plays that he made, and you're like, oh, man, that's rookie year Josh again. But, I mean, like we talked about ad nauseum, you can't coach that out of Josh because you got to let him rock and let him make those type of plays. But no relief from at least my vantage point outside of the Stefon Diggs moving him around. Nothing really stood out.
Yeah, the Josh Allen thing was the next point I was going to hit on. Everybody knows he didn't play well in the second half. He said so. And the funny thing was, watching it on film, he was actually a little worse than it looked. I mean, he was throwing balls in spots that kind of left you shaking your head a couple different times. The one that no one really talked about, end of the first half, the Bills are 22, 23-yard line. They have a field goal locked. 10 seconds to go, no timeouts. So the situation's easy. You got to throw it in the end zone or throw it out of bounds. What Josh does, he tries to attack Khalil Shakir one-on-one with Alexander with a ball that was very catchable for somebody, probably more likely Alexander, and one of the things that stuck out to me is he tries that this week. Sauce Gardner's probably catching the ball. It seemed like a really, really poor decision. When you're up 14, that extra field goal is a huge 3-score game going in the locker room. So it seemed like a really, really bad decision. The 2 interceptions were as bad as they looked initially. He had first drive of the game was a ball down the field, and that's like you said, the one that he tried long to Gabe Davis. That's a hero play that you're going to get out of Josh. He's going to make that way more often than not, so you live with it. But he also whiffed on one to Jay Kumaro late in the fourth quarter when their Bills were trying to run the clock out. That would have gotten a big first down. So it was definitely a no bueno game for Josh, despite the fact that the touchdown to Stefon Diggs is one of the 3 or 4 best quarterback plays you're going to see all year. And then even the one on the run, he's rolling to his left. And yeah, James Cook is wide open in the fourth quarter. But to be able to feather it into a spot where Cook can kind of catch the ball, oh yeah, chef's kiss all day. So, we still got that from Josh, but the bad stuff was unusually bad for him in this game.
Yeah, like you said, watching it again, the Jake Kumaro miss, we don't talk about it because the Packers didn't do anything on the next drive.
And it's like a 14, 17-point game at that point, so who cares,
But it was like, man, there was a whole bunch of real estate around. Can we make the easy throws? But Josh made up for it. And that play to Diggs, I know you guys have probably seen it on social media, but I was just in awe about it because he starts on Diggs, and just look at the helmet, the stripe on the back of his helmet. He starts on Diggs, comes off it for a second, and I'm going to go back to Diggs, but someone's in his face, and he just flicks it, and it happens in 2 seconds max. And I'm like, God, 2 people on earth can make this play, and the kid in Kansas City and Josh Allen.
Yeah.
It's just fun to watch that type of ball.
I know a couple guys on social media talked about how it seemed like Josh froze a safety, and I think sometimes when you talk about a quarterback freezing a safety, and you might have a good take on this as a former corner, I wonder how much of it is a quarterback freezing the safety or is he checking the safety? Because the Bills were running a deep dig across the middle there with Isaiah McKenzie, and I think he looks outside and thinks he probably has Diggs down the field. He wants to check and see what that safety's going to do. The safety's butting up on the dig, maybe because Josh is looking there, maybe because he sees the receiver. Either way, from that point, then Josh goes back to the outside. I don't know if he's manipulating the safety or reading the safety. Either way, right. To do that with a guy bearing down on you is amazing.
I don't know if he was checking the safety because how we were taught, once you hit your back foot, that's where he's declaring and going. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, Josh Allen has his own separate rules.
For sure.
But usually you're going to start.
He being the quarterback, you mean?
He's just one guy where, any rule that you have, just throw it out the window and just play ball.
But as a corner, you're saying when the quarterback hits his back foot.
When a quarterback hits his back foot, that's where he's going with the football. Mm-hmm. And when he hit that back foot, he was looking in the middle of the field. Yeah. So I think that's where he wanted to go. And then he was like, nah, forget about it. Yeah, I'm just like, Lord have mercy, man. Shout out to Josh.
I also wonder, too, quarterbacks, when you have a situation where you're under pressure, me as a quarterback, I would want to know where my old crap throw was. If I'm, under pressure and I got to get the ball away, where am I going? A, that I might have a shot, but B, I can launch it in a spot where my guy's going to catch it or it's incomplete. I think Josh does a pretty good job of throwing the ball to the right spot. Either way, we could probably talk about that for an hour. Amazing play. Let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball. And the big talk after this game was run defense or the lack thereof. Now, I talked to Jordan Phillips afterward, and his comment was, when they kept running on 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 10, what were we supposed to do? And they only ran on 3rd and more than 2, once in that game, early in the fourth quarter. But the reaction makes it clear what the Bills thought of the Packers' run game, which is, what are you doing? You're not really trying to do it. I think they're simplifying how well the Packers did when it was early enough in the game to where running the ball was okay. I mean, first drive of the second half, 3 of the first 4 runs are 32 yards, 11 yards, 27 yards. And these are gash runs with, really complex and interesting blocking schemes to where, this isn't the Bills not trying. This is the Bills getting beat by run plays, at least, through the first 3 quarters of this game.
Yeah, the Packers, Matt LaFleur, he comes from that Kyle Shanahan's tree, and not to get too sophisticated, but it's a lot of movement in the run game. A lot of people moving around, guards pulling, tight ends going everywhere. And the Bills don't see that too often because, A, that style of running.
Nobody sees it too often.
No one sees it too often. There's probably like 3-4 teams in the league that does that, and at a high level at least. And the Bills, if you want to take it back a little bit, played a running game similar to that last year against the Patriots on that Monday night when it was windy and they couldn't get the Patriots off the field. And I don't want to say the Bills struggled with that because, I mean, the Patriots only ran for like 3 yards a pop, but they couldn't get them off the field. That style of rushing attack, guys moving around, the Bills backers want to get downhill and they want to make plays now. You can't do that with that because if you do that, you're giving up 80 yards. So you saw Milano and Edmonds a little bit more hesitant to hit their gaps, and it led to some gashes. And then now you're putting your secondary guys in terrible positions. I mean, I know I had Poyer with a couple of missed tackles, but a couple of those are just prayers because if you're going head up with any running back, let alone A.J. Dillon, God bless you, I did that, and my chin still hurts. So shout out to Matt LaFleur for the rushing game that they schemed up. I understand that some of it had to do with the Bills not anticipating it, but I got to call a spade a spade. The Bills, I think, at some points in that game just got out-executed in some of those rushing attacks.
Yeah, Daquan Jones, who's been pretty good occupying double teams at defensive tackle, got single blocked more in this game than I've seen him all year. And again, the missed tackles were a problem. I mean, Poyer had a couple. There was a DeMar Hamlin miss, I think, in this game. Elam missed a tackle at one point that allowed 10 more yards. So everybody kind of took a turn in that secondary, in part because the secondary had a lot of chances to make tackles, more than they probably should. Beyond that, you know, in the passing game, the one guy I want to spotlight is Greg Rousseau. And we talked about him a lot in this spot. He had a sack in this game. The sack wasn't really his doing. That was an Ed Oliver play, and Oliver had a really nice game, along with Tim Settle, who was really good. And get to him again more in a minute. Rousseau, at the beginning of this game, absolutely dominated the first series of the game against the Green Bay offensive tackle. Bull rushed him right past the quarterback. Then the next play had another good pressure, too. With Rousseau, you don't get it consistently. But what you are getting consistently is maybe one series a game or, you know, a couple of combos of plays. You get really good rushes to where he's really dangerous. And look, as a defensive end, if you get one sack a game, like you might lose 30 pass rushes. But if you get that one, you got a 17-sack season. You're going to every Pro Bowl and All-Pro team that there is in the league. So, you know, we're seeing that out of Rousseau, and it's a little bit better. Again, the sack wasn't really on him, but whatever. The rushes are there for the most part. You had a guy you liked in the secondary.
Yeah, DeMar Hamlin, and obviously he's about start 5 or 6 now, I believe, with Micah Hyde being out.
Maybe a little less than that.
Yeah, but he's, you know, getting into a little bit more of a rhythm. First play defensive snap of the game, he comes down here and makes a nice
Love that play. Yep.
Love that tackle. And that's kind of been like the synopsis of his play so far. He's great in run support. I mean, dating back to his time at Pitt, he's always been good in the running game and just tackling in space in general, which is a key part of playing the safety position, especially with how the game is played today. But I wanted to talk about that touchdown that he gave up late in the game and how that is an example of his youth and the fact that the Bills have been spoiled with Micah Hyde and Poyer back there. So it was a little bit of a play where Aaron Rodgers rolled out a bit, and it became a broken play of a bit, but then the receiver changed his route mid-play, and Aaron Rodgers was able to find him. Now, the reason why that was the youth showing is because of the fact, in practice, you don't practice scramble drill at full speed because quarterbacks are off limits. We can't touch quarterbacks. So there's no time for practice scramble drill in live settings and practice. You just don't see it too often. So he's only going to be able to get better at that through live reps in the game, and that was an example of his youth showing in the game. It's unfortunate that it happened, but, I mean, late in the game, happy that it wasn't a higher stakes situation.
It's funny that you say that. So essentially you're saying that if you want to defend a scramble drill, the only guys in the league who are really going to be good at that are guys who are veterans who've seen it 80, 50, how many times it takes.
Because think about it, in practice, the whistle is so short. I'm not letting anyone get close to Josh Allen, right? And
or even the scout team quarterback. Right?
Exactly, and there's no scout team quarterback, or even the scout team just isn't full speed. We can try all we want about going as fast as we can on scout team. It's not the same thing as the game. So unless you're out there getting those reps, I don't care how much time you've watched film. I don't care all the examples. Coach wants to tell you, be in the position at this time. Unless you've been out there, there's nothing like that. So I'm hoping that it's a learning lesson for him. The more he's able to see that, he'll get better at it.
Let me ask you about his tackling. You like it. I like it okay, but I kind of see it as a risk-reward style tackling. You know, he likes to fly in and cut out the legs, and he succeeds in it more often than not. But when he misses, especially at the safety position, isn't that kind of dangerous?
Well, that's the one position that, you're right, it is a risk-reward. I like how physical he is. I guess I love that aspect of him. And I'm not saying the Bills are soft by any means. They're not. But I love that there's a guy on that secondary who brings it right. And he's a little of an enforcer. But you're right, though. You're the one position on the field, even more so than cornerback, that can't miss tackles. Because if you do, we're going in the end zone, we're dancing, everyone at home is laughing at you.
Play the fight song, yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. All right, a couple guys I want to mention, defensive tackles. Ed Oliver had, I think maybe his best game of the year since the opener. Not super dominant, but definitely, was a factor. Tim Settle, to me, was the star of the interior in this game. I mean, against the pass, against the run, really was dominant, made his presence felt. And again, when we talk about the Bills' defensive tackles, Ed Oliver, already the man. Jordan Phillips burst onto the scene, having a great year. Daquan Jones, I can't go through one of these without mentioning him once. And now we're talking about Tim Settle having a big game. So the depth there has been amazing.
Shout out to how Brandon Beane has revamped that room, because when you look at teams that advance far in the playoffs, they usually have a nice line of guys they can pull in and out of the game.
All right, next week, looking forward to talking about how Nyheim Hines fits into this offense and what the Bills do with him, assuming he does play against the Jets. He's Carl Jones. I'm Thad Brown. We will do Let's Talk Ball every week at this time, breaking down the X's and O's from all the Bills games. Thanks for watching and listening. Please click on something else here at RochesterFirst.com.